All right, so now that we're ready to create our fully fledged RESTful API, let's revisit this table that we saw previously, where we have the HTTP verbs on the left, those 5 trusty verbs: get, post, put, patch, and delete. And then we've got our RESTful routing over here. One, which is for the overall category, so all of the articles that can be accessed through our API. And then one, which is for a specific resource inside that collection. So in this case, we're using an article on Jack Bauer as the example. Now, in order to make our API RESTful, we're going to go through this table and create each of these routes in turn, and we're going to build it up from scratch. And the first thing we're going to tackle is, of course, our get route, which fetches all of the articles using the /articles route. So we can do this using Express by writing app.get, specifying our route, and then adding a callback function which can tackle the request and response. And we've seen this and done this a few times now, so it shouldn't be too unfamiliar to you. And behind the scenes, in terms of our database, we're going to be reading from our database. So we're going to need to tap into our model that contains all our articles, and we're going to find the documents that match a particular condition. In this case, because we want to fetch all of the articles in our articles collection, we're actually going to leave that condition empty, and that will find us everything inside a particular collection. And then we have our callback, which can call back with an error, and also the results of that search, which will contain all of the documents inside our articles collection. So let's put that theory into practice and write some code in our app.js. So right here where you see the 2 /, our to do comment, we're going to delete that, and we're going to do what we need to do, which is create our get route that fetches all of the articles. So let's tap into our app and then use the get method from Express. And then we're going to specify the route, which is going to be the entire collection of articles. So we're going to put that at /articles. And then we're going to have our callback, our request and response. And then inside our callback is where we're going to query our database and find all of the documents inside the articles collection. And to do that, we're going to specify the model name and use the find method. So we'll say article, which is the name of our model, dot find, which is the name of the method. And then we're going to leave the first parameter empty because we actually don't have any conditions. We just want to find all of them. And then we're just going to add our callback, which can come back with an error and also the results of the find method. So first one we'll call error, and the other one we'll call found articles, or whatever it is you want to call it, as long as you know what it means. So now we're going to trawl through all our articles, find everything that's in there, and then once it's done, it's going to trigger the callback, potentially show us any errors if there were some, but otherwise just allow us access to the found articles. So now if we simply use our log and log the found articles and close off this method, then if we hit save, our server should work fine, but it seems like I've got a typo here. Instead of user new URL parser, it should be use new URL parser. So I'm just going to copy that in to make sure I don't have any more typos there. So now if we restart our server, you can see we no longer have any warnings or any deprecation warnings or any problems there. So now our server has started on port 3000, and in order to trigger our app.get method, we need to try and access our localhost 3000 /articles. So let's go into Chrome and go into localhost port 3000 /articles. And this will trigger our get request. So you can see it's running. And now if we check into our terminal, you can see it's logged all of the documents that are currently contained in our articles collection. Now, if we didn't want it to just log it, and instead we want it to send it back to the client, then instead of console logging the found articles, we would say res.send So the results are going to be sending all of these found articles. And now our server has refreshed and we're going to tap into this get again. And you can see we now have all of our documents printed over here. And because I've got that Chrome extension, JSON Awesome Viewer, installed to my Chrome browser, you can see it's actually rendering it in quite a nice, pretty way. And we can see our 4 items in drop-down menu format. And now you should be able to see this is getting pretty similar to when you access a public API and try to access a resource by making a GET request. So now let's head back into Atom. Now, the last thing we're going to do before we wrap up the GET on our articles route is to actually just add in an error check in here, right? So just in case we had an error, we want to be able to reflect that back to the client. So inside this callback, we're going to say if there were no errors, then in that case, we're going to res.send the found articles. But if there were errors, we're going to res.send the errors. And this way, it just means that if we have a problem, we can see it on the client side instead of it being lost to the ether. So that is all the code we need to write to set up our first GET routes. And we've now successfully tackled this first one in the table, where we handle when a client wants to get the resources at the articles route.